Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. It's Tuesday the 4th of April and my name is Brian Liddy. And this evening we're joined by Maureen Watt. Good evening, Maureen.
Hi Brian, hope you're keeping well.
Yes, I am, thank you. Hope you are too. Today's Middle East update, first of all, at least 50,695 Palestinians have been killed and 154,338 have been injured in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023, according to the Gaza Health Authority. Gaza's health ministry says Israel is preventing the entry of polio vaccines into Gaza, threatening the gains made in 7 months of efforts to combat the spread of an epidemic. On World Health Day, the ministry said sanitary conditions across Gaza were deteriorating amid the disruption of water pumps and the ban on food and medical aid. Israel has been accused of acting with impunity as British MPs raised concerns that 2 parliamentarians were stopped from entering the country. Labour MP Sarah Owen said it was regrettable that the Israeli government is now acting with impunity. More than 200 journalists and media workers have been killed by Israeli forces since October 2023, making it the deadliest ever conflict for journalists. There's nothing new in the Israeli occupation's crimes against journalists. Jad Shandrour, spokesperson for Samir Kassir Foundation, told Al Jazeera, he said Israel's deliberately bombing journalists because it doesn't want anyone to report the situation. Israel's relentless attacks have led to large-scale civilian casualties and displaced 400,000 people in Gaza, the United Nations Secretary-General spokesman said. Survivors across Gaza are being displaced repeatedly and forced into an ever-shrinking space where their basic needs just cannot be met, said Stephanie Dujarric. Netanyahu acted like a crime lord while dismissing Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar, opposition leader Yair Lapid said. Netanyahu tried to use the Shin Bet to plot and eliminate a political opponent, Lapid said on X. This is not the behaviour of a prime minister, this is the behaviour of a crime lord. Maureen, is there anything in today's Gaza update that you'd like to highlight?
Well, I think I would agree with, I think it was one of the MPs who said that the Israeli government is acting with impunity. It was absolutely disgraceful that they were detained and returned. Regardless of their views in a democratic system, surely you should be able to visit one another's countries and see exactly what's going on. It just reiterates the fact that Netanyahu does really think that he can lord it over Gaza and its Palestinian people without being responsible to anybody. The plight of the Palestinians in Gaza must be absolutely awful as they're corralled, I think that's the only word for it, into a smaller and smaller space in Gaza, and it looks increasingly like it, although if anybody doubted it before, that Netanyahu, along with Trump backing him, really does want to obliterate Gaza, rid it of all its people, and do we really want to see a whatever it is Riviera of another Riviera of the Mediterranean there? It just doesn't bear thinking about.
Thank you, Maureen. And as far as I'm aware, that plan to transform, if I put in inverted commas, Gaza into a Riviera is still on the cards. But I'll move on to the Ukraine update. Today is the 1140th day of the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian forces have captured 2 Chinese nationals fighting with the Russian army in the eastern Donetsk region, according to Volodymyr Zelensky. The Ukrainian president said they were 2 of many more Chinese members of the Russian armed forces, and he accused the Kremlin of trying to involve Beijing in the conflict, either directly or indirectly. On Monday, Volodymyr Zelensky said for the first time that Ukrainian forces were operating in Russia's Belgorod region, where Moscow reported attacks in March. Belgorod is regularly the target of Ukrainian air attacks and is close to Russia's Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces have been desperately trying to hang on to the territory since launching a surprise incursion last year. Zelensky said in his daily address that General Alexander Syrski had reported on our presence in Kursk region and our presence in Belgorod region. He added, "We continue to conduct active operations in the border areas on the enemy's territory, and this is absolutely right. The war must return to where it came from." It is the first time since the full-scale invasion began that Zelensky has explicitly mentioned a Ukrainian presence in Belgorod, a border region with a population of about 1.5 million people. The Russian military acknowledged facing Ukrainian land attacks in the region in March. According, According to reports, Ukrainian troops have occupied a 13 square kilometre region in the Russian region near the border village of Demidovka. Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have said the incursion into Kursk and other Russian territory is to divert Russian forces attacking the Ukrainian regions of Sumy and Kharkiv. Anger and outrage gripped Zelensky's hometown on Monday as it held funerals for some of the 20 people, including 9 children, killed by a Russian missile that struck apartment buildings and a playground. More than 70 were wounded in the attack on Kryvyi last Friday evening. The children were playing on the grass. The UN Human Rights Office in Ukraine said it was the deadliest single verified strike harming children since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. It was also one of the deadliest attacks so far this year. And Donald Trump has accused Russia of bombing like crazy right now, even as the US president claimed the parties were sort of close on a deal. On Monday, he reiterated his opposition to Russia's bombing of Ukraine as his administration participates in talks seeking an end to the fighting. "I'm not happy about what's going on," he told reporters in the White House. Trump's remarks on Monday came hours after the Kremlin said it supported the idea of a truce in Ukraine, but had many questions about how such a deal would work, pushing back at US and European suggestions that it was playing for time. Russia has kept up its strikes on the Ukraine unabated, despite the US president's promise to bring peace within 24 hours of returning to the White House in January. Forgive me, Maureen. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight from that item?
Well, I think in terms of Ukraine, I think the fact that Chinese fighters have been found and captured by Ukraine in this war is quite a significant new development. I mean, we've known for weeks, if not months, that North Korean troops are there. I think that's been quite openly admitted. But to have Chinese troops there, I think, is quite another thing. And I'm not sure we know at this stage whether it's actually Chinese troops legitimately there or whether it's Chinese mercenaries helping Russia in the war. I think that needs to be clarified. But in any case, if it's Chinese, legitimately, if I can use that word, there, then this is a very significant development. I think the cruelty of Putin knows no bounds, the way he has over the past days bombed relentlessly in Zelensky's hometown. I mean, I just think that is absolutely wicked. However, it does seem that Ukraine is still managing to make gains in Russian territory. And I think we've said before, Brian, that when peace talks do begin in earnest, it will be, about territory in the end of the day. But we still seem very far away from even a ceasefire at this point.
Thank you, Maureen. Can I maybe just ask, how sincere do you think Trump is when he says that he's unhappy or angry with Russia and with Putin? Can you trust him when he says that?
Well, I think it's a bit of a throwaway remark at the moment while he concentrates on tariffs, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But he seems unable to keep, many balls in the air at the moment. He's not very good at juggling, and he's making such a mess of tariffs. But I think that until he has it in his eyesight and his focus again, we'll not see very much movement in any direction. I mean, he has said that, the killing of people on both sides must stop, the killing of innocent men and women. And, you can't argue with him on that. But how serious he is about, I think, maybe in a way he's probably been a bit influenced by the backlash from the interview, or the grilling. No, that's too soft a word. That he and Vance gave Zelensky in the White House, and the backlash from world leaders on that, I would think must have maybe made him think again. But as I say, we'll have to see what the diplomats in the meantime have come up with, and what happens when he turns his attention to Ukraine once more.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. Excuse me. Traders on the New York Stock Exchange experienced significant volatility on Monday, with the US market reacting sharply to fluctuating headlines about Donald Trump's trade war and global economic uncertainty. They saw wild swings in stock prices as rumours spread that tariffs might be lifted, only for the White House to dismiss the claim as false. This momentary hope quickly dissipated, with market sentiment swinging back downward, leaving traders concerned about the unpredictable nature of global trade policies. Analysts pointed out that the turbulence driven by Trump's ongoing trade tensions has exposed deep market uncertainty, with automated trading systems exacerbating the fluctuations. Trump's trade policies, including the recent imposition of tariffs, have significantly impacted both US and global markets. The uncertainty surrounding the trade war has triggered fears of a looming recession, with analysts predicting that US consumers will eventually feel the pinch. Despite these concerns, traders see opportunities in the volatility, with some looking to profit from the downswings in the market. However, the UK's response to this economic instability has been less decisive. While the EU remains a far more crucial trading partner for the UK, accounting for 42% of exports in 2023, compared to just 15% to the US, the UK government has ruled out rejoining the single market or customs union. This decision, driven largely by Labour's fear of alienating voters in key red wall seats, leaves the UK in a precarious position, unable to fully address the fallout from both Trump's tariffs and the broader global economic instability. As the UK faces rising costs and growing uncertainty, the Labour government's reluctance to shift its stance on Brexit appears to limit its ability to provide a robust economic response, leaving industries vulnerable to the ongoing global disruptions. So, Maureen, this item makes me think that, or it seems a good reminder that Brexit isn't done yet, or at least certainly not done with us. We're still going to be feeling the effects of it. But again, the sentence that struck me most in the actual item was that talking about the UK. Of course, Scotland, we've got no option but to follow suit since Brexit happened. Isn't that the case?
Yes, I'm sure if there was a referendum on rejoining the EU today or in the next few weeks, it would be a resounding rejoin, not just from Scotland again, but from the rest of the UK. But that's not going to happen. It's very telling that Stammer and the Chancellor just don't mention it at all, although they're obviously working fiercely in the background to see how they can rekindle some trading ways of trading with the EU. I mean, clearly, the only people that are making any money at the moment are the traders on the stock exchanges throughout the world. volatility is usually very good for them, and we're not getting a clear picture. I don't think anybody, economists or anyone else, is saying what the future holds, and that there is any clear picture of way things are going. I mean, there's 2 points I think I'd like to make. One is whether you agree with Trump's isolationism and wanting everything built in the US or not. That is not going to happen overnight. It's not even going to happen within the term of his office. I mean, these things take ages to rebuild. And I was listening to one question about whether the workers in the United States really do want to be working again in the sweatshops, making products for Nike and the other sports brands which are so popular throughout the world. I mean, the chances are that they're not. So, and the other thing is raw materials. I mean, China has quite a supply of rare earth materials, and it courts countries throughout the world that do have them, particularly, as I have witnessed, in Africa and Southern Africa. And the idea that even if Trump, sorry, I shouldn't laugh, even if Trump gets Greenland, the extraction of rare earth metals is going to again take longer than the 4 years. So that puts into question then who is going to succeed him. Is he really serious about running for another term and tearing up the US Constitution, or who is he going to have follow him? So if this continues past 4 years, clearly it's going to really reorder world economics. But in the short term, it's difficult to see who's going to benefit. And I think the prospect of stagflation and recession is really is a real possibility.
Thank you, Maureen. Bill Ackerman, the billionaire and Trump supporter, described Trump's policies as economic nuclear war on every country in the world, and said that if it does go ahead, then business is going to, investment will halt, consumers will close their wallets, and it's going to be a recession then. Does that sound plausible?
It does sound plausible. I mean, I remember somebody posing the question as to who is exactly advising Trump, and you don't get the impression that it's any economists or trust any economists with any credibility that are. It seems to just be the billionaires that he surrounds himself with. So, yeah, it's a huge worry, huge worry.
Thank you, Maureen. Excuse me again. Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes has called on the UK government to take immediate action to support Scottish industry amid growing economic uncertainty, exacerbated by global instability and trade tariffs. Forbes highlighted several key areas where the UK government's intervention is necessary, including reversing the rise in employers' national insurance contributions, reducing electricity costs, and forging a closer economic relationship with the European Union. He stressed that while Scotland's economy remains strong, the volatility in global markets requires decisive action from Westminster to ensure the stability of local industries. The Deputy First Minister argued that the UK government must acknowledge that its current economic policies are no longer suitable given the circumstances. Forbes pointed to countries like Spain, which have been more proactive in supporting industry, as an example of how the UK could adjust its approach. She emphasised that reversing the national insurance hike would help businesses retain staff and support economic growth, especially in times of uncertainty. Forbes also called for a shift in the UK's approach to its relationship with the European Union. With the continued instability in global trade, she said it is crucial that the UK works to strengthen its economic ties with the EU, even suggesting a potential reversal of Brexit to mitigate the negative impacts on businesses and consumers in Scotland. Another major concern raised was the soaring cost of electricity, which, despite Scotland's wealth in energy resources, continues to rise. Forbes argued that reducing energy costs would help alleviate financial pressure on both businesses and households, contributing to a more resilient economy. In addition, Forbes pointed to the specific investment opportunities such as the Acorn carbon capture and storage project, which could be pivotal for Scotland's energy transition. He called on the UK government to prioritise these projects to help stimulate growth in key sectors, particularly in regions like Grangemouth. Forbes concluded by asserting that the UK government's current economic policies, particularly its stance on Brexit and taxation, are outdated and need to be reformed to better support Scotland's economic future. Maureen, can I ask, what are the chances that Keir Starmer and the UK government is going to listen to the Deputy First Minister's advice?
Well, I wouldn't think very much unless it's part of a huge swell of similar advice that's coming from others. I mean, I think Kate Forbes is right to highlight the national insurance contribution, but, you know, it's up and running as of a few days ago. Will it be... You see, Rachel Reeves has really hemmed herself in with her restraints on borrowing rules. And I think, you know, can you think of a world crisis other than this that would force you to think about looking at your rules again? I mean, are people really going to, I mean, even the Tories, are they going to say, oh, she can't keep to her rules in a situation like this? I would have thought this was a situation for, you know, Keir Starmer to be involving all the parties in Westminster and the heads of the devolved administrations to be coming round a table and hammering out ideas, because it's clear that the Labour government really don't have any idea how to deal with this. I mean, I heard him in front of I can't remember the name of the committee, liaison committee, I think it is, where all the heads of the chairs of the committees come and grill him, you know, talk about steel and the prospects for steel and the problems at Scunthorpe. But I mean, one of the key ones for us in Scotland is the aluminium plant at Fort William. I mean, that seems to me to be one of Trump's key targets, is aluminum, as he calls it. So I think that really that kind of meeting should happen. You know, I'm not sure what can be done to help and protect the salmon industry or the whiskey industry. Clearly, you know, events like Tartan Week were really good at cementing relationships and trading partners there. But there are much more serious companies. I don't mean that. There are other companies that really are going to have a means of communicating to the Westminster government, who are still in charge of economic and financial policy, exactly what needs to be done to help their industries.
Thank you, Maureen. And isn't this just another example that shows that Brexit isn't done yet, and that Scotland, and post-Brexit Britain, Scotland's got no option but to just wait and see what Westminster does and then go along with it?
Yes, and I mean, you know, you hear Russell Finlay stand up in the chamber at Holyrood and decry the trade relations and the trade offices. I can't remember what they're called now. The offices that we have in places like Paris and Brussels and New York, where we have people there, hubs where we help people who are wanting to into these other markets, to help them open doors. I mean, they are a huge asset to Scotland, yet the Tories would want us to shut them down. So, surely this, I don't see Russell Finlay ever coming together to try and, get over this hurdle. And, we've seen Sarwar just grandstand in New York and, completely lost his way by the hubris of it all, I would say. But this requires serious conversations with grown-up people, and if business people are coming to our politicians' doors, then I think it is key that Stammer meets with our leaders in the devolved governments. I'm sure he'd likely meet mayors, but he needs to meet them to it. That's why bodies like the British Irish Council and the body where the UK government does meet with the devolved administrations is really, really important.
Thank you, Maureen. The UK government's proposed £5 billion cuts to disability benefits will leave hundreds of thousands of seriously ill and disabled people without access to vital support services, experts have warned. Policy in Practice, a consultancy, highlights that claimants who no longer qualify for personal independence payments, or PIP, or incapacity benefits will lose a crucial marker of need used by local councils and NHS bodies. This will make it difficult for them to access essential care services, household support, and protection from financial difficulties. As a result, some of the most vulnerable individuals, including those with life-limiting conditions like cancer, multiple sclerosis and lung diseases, could become effectively invisible within local systems. An estimated 230,000 disabled individuals will lose PIP and the incapacity element of universal credit, with a financial loss of at least £8,100 annually. Additionally, almost 600,000 more people who do not claim universal credit will no longer qualify for PIP. This loss will not only affect their finances, but will also remove their priority status on council housing waiting lists and in homelessness assessments, increasing the risk of prolonged homelessness. The policy changes are also expected to create significant challenges for NHS services and local councils, which rely on disability benefit awards to deliver preventative support. Experts stress that by stripping away these benefits, the government is ignoring the needs of sick and disabled people, leaving them without support that could help them remain independent and manage their conditions effectively. The UK government argues that the reforms are necessary to address a broken benefit system and provide better support for those who can work. However, critics warn that the cuts could exacerbate ill health, increase poverty, and push more disabled people further from the job market. The Labour chair of the House of Commons Work and Pensions Committee, Debbie Abrahams, has called for a pause in the changes to allow for further scrutiny of their impact on health, employment and poverty. So, Maureen, I think if I've understood this correctly, this is what are sometimes described as passport benefits. That if you're eligible for a certain benefit, then it automatically sort of sends you down a flow chart of benefits, as it were, saying, well, if you're eligible for that, then you might also be eligible for this. And so if these passport benefits are being stopped, then that's like a shutter coming down or a dam being put up, isn't it?
Yes. So I've recently been granted power of attorney over a friend who's been diagnosed or deemed to be an adult with incapacity. And I am trying to sort out his benefits at the moment. And it's an absolute minefield. I mean, to be honest, I've been putting off contacting the DWP because I just dread what's going to come up if he's no longer entitled to employment and support allowance, which I don't think he will be. But getting the benefits sorted out is a nightmare. And if you've not got all your faculties about you, of course people are going to be become further from the jobs market. I mean, if you can't go online and answer the questions. If you can't take part in the web chat, if you haven't got access to a phone and prepared to wait for an hour before you get contact to an advisor, and it's not the advisor's fault, then you're just going to give up and just live on the meager income that you've got, rather than really try and find out what everything is that you're entitled to. And that's why there's this huge underclaim of benefits. So everything in this report, I think, is absolutely true. And it's not been thought through. It's been driven by the fact that Rachel Reeves wants to try and reduce the deficit, and picks on the most vulnerable first. So yes, I absolutely despair. And the other thing is that those organisations that work in this field, like Citizens Advice and others, are really going to be overwhelmed. Yeah, it's just going to be horrible. I mean, you can see people just literally ending up in destitution, and many of them might not be able to even go to a food bank or try and access some help, unless they have got very caring friends and carers and relatives and neighbours. So it might be worth having a conversation with people whom you might know who are in this situation to see if you can help with getting them help.
Thank you, Maureen. I'm sorry to hear about your friend and the hassle that you're having, but it kind of sounds like you'd maybe agree with Starmer and Rachel Reeves that the benefits system does need overhauled if it really is so difficult to navigate. But I'm guessing you don't agree with their solution or what their ideas to change it.
Yeah, I haven't come to the conclusion of how it can be changed. Well, I mean, maybe the answer is to everybody have a basic income, which has been talked about. I mean, I'm sure that at a stroke could probably really transform the benefit system, you would think. And I can't understand why everybody finds it so difficult to implement. Of course, you'd have to change the tax regime as well. But I think it's these bold measures that need to be taken, rather than piling regulations and guidelines upon regulations and guidelines and making the system even more complicated than it was probably when it was set up. So, yeah, I haven't even put my mind to that yet. I want to get past getting him sorted.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope it does all work out well. In 2024, clean energy sources supplied more than 40% of global electricity demand for the first time since the 1940s, driven by significant growth in solar power, according to a new report. The energy think tank Ember found that solar power capacity has doubled over the past 3 years, becoming the fastest growing source of energy globally for the past 2 decades. Solar now accounts for almost 7% of the world's electricity, while wind power contributes just over 8%. However, both solar and wind still lag behind hydropower, which provides 14% of global electricity in 2024. The continued rise in clean energy, especially solar, is expected to outpace overall electricity demand, indicating that fossil fuels may soon be pushed out of the global power system. Ember's report predicts that clean power technologies, including solar, wind, nuclear and bioenergy, are on track to grow faster than electricity demand itself. This shift towards renewables marks a positive environmental trend, reducing reliance on fossil fuels and helping to curb global emissions. While solar energy remains a smaller part of the global energy mix, it is forecast to play a crucial role in meeting the world's growing electricity needs, especially as technologies like artificial intelligence, electric vehicles and heat pumps drive up demand for electricity. Together, these technologies are expected to contribute to a 0.7% rise in global electricity demand in 2024, double the increase seen 5 years ago. The report's findings underscore the importance of renewable energy in the global transition towards cleaner, more sustainable energy systems. Despite short-term challenges, such as increased energy demand during heat waves, The continued expansion of clean energy sources like solar and wind is set to shape the future of the global energy market. Excuse me. So, Maureen, a glimmer of hope there, perhaps. Do you think we are going to be able to see sooner than later that we're all going to be able to get free electricity? No more lecky bills, no more meters to feed.
No, no, not no, not not that I can see. Can you? Can you imagine the electricity companies saying, "Oh, we're going to give you free electricity"? I don't think that's going to happen. But you know, it should be possible, I would have thought, within the not too distant future to see our bills coming down. I mean, I do not understand why there's, well, I do not, I was going to say, I do not understand why they're still going up. But if electricity prices are based, you know, they're based on the price of oil, and the oil price has come down quite significantly recently, but it's the price of gas, isn't it, rather than oil? So um, gas should be coming down too, though, if oil's coming down. But anyway, as long as it's based on fossil fuels, is what I'm trying to say, and not renewable energies, then you know, bills are still going to rise. It's good. It would be good to, you know, maybe discuss this further and discuss, you know, if it's an international study, you know, which countries are powering ahead with renewables. I mean, we keep talking about China, you know, ripping out more and more coal, but at the same time, I think they are putting in banks and fields of solar energy too. I just wish in the UK we'd get away from governments continually pushing heat pumps, which are really difficult to fit in older houses. If they want to see them in new houses, that's fine, but they're really difficult to fit in older houses. So and promote solar more, where, you know, beautiful days that we've had, but solar with battery storage are really, I think, a way forward. So this is a good news story, and I think while Trump continues to say drill baby drill, or rip out coal from coal mines, again another dirty job, which I'm sure miners, former miners, and even in the UK, even in the US, don't really want to go back to. I think, yeah, this is good, and long may it continue in the direction of travel.
Thank you, Maureen. Um, Donald Trump is expected to sign executive orders today aimed at reviving the US coal industry, despite its significant role, forgive me, despite its significant role in global greenhouse gas emissions and pollution at a time of escalating climate concerns. The orders are intended to extend the life of older coal-fired power plants and support the coal industry, which has been in decline for years. This move comes in response to increased US power demand driven by sectors like data centers, electric cars, and artificial intelligence. Senior White House officials have indicated that Trump will use emergency authority to keep some coal plants operating that were previously scheduled for retirement. This action contrasts sharply with the policies of his successor, Joe Biden, who introduced new climate regulations in May 2022 to significantly cut carbon pollution from coal plants. And of course, that should have been predecessor rather than successor. Apologies for that. The Environmental Protection Programme, the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, has already worked to weaken or repeal several pollution controls, including attempts to undo Biden's carbon reduction plans. The expected executive orders will direct federal agencies to identify coal resources on public lands, remove barriers to coal mining, and prioritise coal leasing. Additionally, the orders aim to promote coal technology exports and accelerate the development of such technologies. However, experts agree that any short-term boost to coal is unlikely to be sustainable, given the lower cost of natural gas and the growing market for renewable energy sources like wind and solar. In fact, 93% of the new power expected to be added to the US grid this year will come from solar, wind and batteries. Environmental groups have criticised the move, pointing out that coal is increasingly uncompetitive, with clean energy becoming more affordable. Reports suggest that it now costs more to keep many existing coal plants running than to replace them with renewable energy sources. So, Maureen, that glimmer of hope that we talked about, it's gone now then, hasn't it? It's on the way out.
Yeah, you wonder what decade Trump really wants to return to. I think, is it the 70s or something? I mean, he was talking about this kind of stuff apparently in the 70s or 80s. And you just think, you know, as I've said many times now on this program, if he wants to put up fences around the US and let us all get on um, trading as normal and living as normal for the next 4 years, that would be great. But of course, the USA is so big and so powerful that it affects everybody. And, um, you know, along with this drill, baby, drill, and fossil fuels, it's almost as if he just wants to be a climate change denier for the sake of being a climate change denier, because the left and the Democrats and woke people are the ones who are in favour, who recognise that there's climate change and want to see climate action. So, yeah, it's just him being really contrary for the sake of it, but of course to the detriment of people's health and people's well-being in the areas where the coal is mined or where the onshore drilling takes place, and you know, the health and safety rules and the environmental rules around these he'll probably diminish as well. So it is, honestly, it feels like just going back in time with him.
Okay, thank you, Maureen. New research suggests that physical activity and diet policies for children in Scotland helped mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but further preparation is needed for future crises. The Active Healthy Kids Scotland report card, which provides an evidence-based overview of physical activity and health in Scottish children, indicates that the country's policies likely softened the pandemic's impact. The report assesses 11 key health indicators, including physical activity levels, screen time, active transportation, diet and obesity. It also evaluates influences like family, community and government policies. While the research highlights positive results, such as the success of the Play Strategy Review and the Free School Meals programme, it also reveals persistent socio-economic and gender inequalities. These inequalities were particularly evident in organised sport and physical activity participation, with children from wealthier areas and boys more likely to engage in these activities. The report also points out that gender gaps in physical play activity widened post-pandemic. However, the study found that policies implemented during the pandemic, such as the Coronavirus Food Fund, played a significant role in supporting children's diet and physical health. The success of these policies is attributed to their strong resourcing and effective implementation, which likely reduced the pandemic's negative effects on children's physical activity and overall health. The research, which draws on national surveys conducted between 2020 and 2022, stresses the need for better monitoring of children's physical activity and health in Scotland. This would help policymakers fully understand the extent of the pandemic's impact and prepare more effectively for future public health crises. The Active Healthy Kids Scotland report card has been published annually since 2013 and is part of the Active Healthy Kids Global Alliance, which includes data from over 70 countries. Maureen, I must admit that's the first time that I've heard of this report card for Scottish kids. Do you think the government in Holyrood will be going back over what they put into place during the pandemic, looking for things that helped and then carrying them through?
Yes. I remember being on a BBC Scotland programme when I was Minister for Schools and Skills. That's from 2007 to 2009. Being given pelters by by oh, I forgot his first name, BT, um, about the Daily Mile, which had been introduced in a school in Stirling, I think, and was being adopted. So way back then, we were being proactive about children's health and making sure that the concept of the Daily Mile was rolled out throughout Scotland. And I think since then we've been building on that and obviously monitoring the effects of things like the Daily Mile in schools. There is unfortunately still a gap between richer and poorer kids, and I think as long as I can remember, there's been a gap between participation in activity between boys and girls. But I think it's absolutely essential to be monitoring children's health because we've seen the effect of the obesity crisis. We're seeing the effect as the baby boomers become old age of not participating in activity. So, as the generations go through, hopefully those who get into the habit of taking exercise from a very early age then stick with it throughout their lives and are less likely to need the services of the health service. So this is a really good long-term strategy that needs to be working properly and learning from it all the time.
Thank you, Maureen.
Oh dear.
Apologies for that. Rather, probably not very nice to watch interruption, but let's see how we get on. So the Scottish Government has offered NHS staff in Scotland an 8% pay increase over 2 years, aiming to ensure they remain the best paid NHS staff in the UK. The pay offer, announced by Health Secretary Neil Gray, will see a 4.25 increase in 2025-26 and a 3.75% rise in 2026-27. It represents an investment of over £700 million for almost 170,000 NHS staff, excuse me, including nurses, midwives, paramedics and other healthcare workers. The proposed increase is designed to remain 1 percentage point above inflation during the 2-year period. The offer was made following discussions with trade unions and is intended to provide NHS staff with financial security, ensuring their pay outpaces inflation. If accepted, the pay rise will be backdated to the 1st of April 2025, benefiting a wide range of staff working under the NHS Agenda for Change system. This includes healthcare workers in direct patient care as well as support staff, such as porters. This investment follows the UK Government's October 2024 announcement which increased employer national insurance contributions, adding an estimated £191 million to the overall cost of Scotland's NHS. The £701 million allocated for 2025-26 and 2026-27 will guarantee Scotland's NHS workers receive the highest pay increase in the UK, reinforcing the Scottish Government's commitment to maintaining competitive pay levels for healthcare professionals. The unions, the unions will now consult their members on the offer, and the outcome will determine whether it is accepted. Maureen, I'm just wondering, have you any idea how the Scottish Government's able to do this when you look at the economic situation that we're in at the moment?
Well, let's face it, if you don't have NHS staff, then you haven't got a health service, have you? The Scottish Government has got a record of trying to make sure that the public sector people feel valued in the public sector. And what struck me about what you've said is that the Scottish Government engage with the unions prior to offers being made, so that the union bosses know exactly what the situation is and where it has come from. I think the cost will be something like, did I read somewhere, an extra 700 million or something, but the health service budget is absolutely huge. And, you know, health service workers have really been under the cosh since COVID, haven't they? And the health service has not really recovered to sense of well-being among the health service staff, but also productivity within the health service. So I hope, that pay increases haven't just been talked about on their own and other things have been considered. But, we're talking about 8% over 2 years, and it's designed to stay above inflation, 4.25, I think, this year and 3.75 next year. And that compares with 2.8%, which is being offered in England under a Labour government. Remember, it's no longer a Tory government making offers like this. And we are already paying our nurses, for example, and have done for years, paying them more in Scotland than we do in England. And we're seeing recovery in our targets in various aspects of the health service. So I'm glad that we're showing that our health service is valued. I think it represents the feeling of our nation in terms of the health service and its workers, and I hope it's agreed.
Business Minister Richard Lochhead has started a visit to China and Japan, aiming to strengthen economic, social and cultural ties while promoting Scotland as a destination for investment. During his visit, which runs from the 8th to the 18th of April, Mr Lochhead will meet with government officials, potential investors and businesses in both countries. His trip will also focus on expanding collaboration between Scottish and Chinese academic institutions. China and Japan are crucial export markets for Scottish goods, with whisky and seafood exports to China tripling since 2005, and whisky exports to Japan increasing by 7% last year. In Japan, In Japan, Mr Lochhead will support 8 Scottish gaming companies seeking to tap into Japan's $50 billion gaming market. These companies are part of the Scottish Government's TechScaler Business Accelerator programme, which aims to help Scottish firms expand into international markets. It will also launch Scotland's first series of activities at Expo 2025 and Osaka, a giant global event running from the 13th of April to the 13th of October. At the Expo, Scotland will showcase its gaming sector, along with consumer industries such as distilleries, skincare and seafood businesses. Richard Lochhead's visit to China will coincide with the 20th anniversary of the Scottish Government's office in the country, which was established in 2005 as part of Scottish Enterprise's international team. The Minister's activities in China will include highlighting opportunities in net zero technologies and promoting Scotland's universities, technical expertise and investment prospects. Scottish Government and Scottish Enterprises are backing the Scottish activities at Expo 2025, with further events planned for June and September, focusing on the health and offshore wind industries. The Expo is expected to attract 28 million visitors and over 150 participating countries. Maureen, this sounds impressive and I can see the appeal, but when you consider what's happening in Trump's tariff America, do you think maybe the Scottish Government would be better to be reaching out to the likes of Canada and the EU?
Well, I'm sure we're doing that as well, Brian. But during Easter recess, this is the kind of thing that will happen during recess time. It takes rather longer to travel there and have any meaningful um, time there. So, um, and it's not the first time that business ministers have gone and done this. So um, I think it's even more vital. This would obviously have been arranged before tariffs, before Trump's announcements on tariffs, and it's more important now than ever to see that this goes ahead and hopefully comes back with fruitful business deals.
Concentrating on me rather than yourself. It's there we go. Carry on.
No, I
Is
think I'm
that you?
finished. What I
Okay.
have to say on that time.
Okay, so we'll move on then. A new strategic advisory task force has been established to support the University of Dundee's recovery following financial difficulties. Chaired by Sir Alan Langlands, the task force will work closely with the Scottish Government and other key stakeholders to secure the institution's long-term success. The University of Dundee is facing significant financial challenges and the Scottish Government is taking action to help address the crisis. The task force, which will convene for the first time this month, will focus on key issues such as the university's teaching offerings and research strengths, particularly in life sciences. Its primary aim is to develop recommendations that will ensure the university's future sustainability and its role in the Dundee City region. Sir Alan Langlands, who will chair the task force, brings extensive experience, having previously led the Higher Education Funding Council for England and the NHS. Langlands also has deep ties to the University of Dundee, having served as its Principal and Vice-Chancellor. The task force will include representatives from the University, Dundee City Council, local businesses, trade unions, other educational institutions and the Scottish Government. The Scottish Government has already provided significant support, including £25 million in additional funding for the university sector in this year's budget. Furthermore, the Scottish Funding Council has granted £22 million to the University of Dundee, providing it with the liquidity needed to develop a financial recovery plan. The Deputy First Minister is also chairing a cross-ministerial group to explore further actions to support the university. Education Secretary Jenny Gilruth has emphasised the importance of the university's recovery, not only for its students and staff, but also for the wider Dundee community. She noted that the success of the university is closely tied to the success of the city region as a whole. The task force's work will complement ongoing efforts by the university, the Scottish Funding Council and local authorities to develop a comprehensive strategy for financial stability and future growth. Full membership of the task force will be announced in due course. Maureen, just two things about this item. One is can never really understand exactly what happened to cause the trouble at Dundee University. Also, do you think what's outlined in this item is going to solve the problem, whatever it may have been?
Well, I think time will tell, but there's obviously been some financial mismanagement here, and it's really important that somebody like Langlands does help out here. I'm really glad he has. He won't have to get up to speed with the university and its situation, apart from its current situation, but he'll know the history there. And I know that people in Dundee are really, really impressed with the way that Jenny Gilruth and the Scottish Government has stepped in to help Dundee. And this task force will hopefully speed up the process and see exactly what needs to be done to make sure that Dundee University has a viable future.
Maureen, thank you very much. So that's about it for this week's Scotland at 7. Thank you to my guest, Maureen Watt. Thank you, Maureen, for taking up the time on this lovely evening. here. And also for apologies for me from my rather unsightly coughing and spluttering, and you've, and for you staying throughout that. But
I hope you get that cough sorted soon.
oh, it's just one of those things, Maureen. But thank you. So, before we go, we just want to remind you that here at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. To everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, we thank you very much. We were £16,000 short of our funding requirement in 2024, which has left us short of the money we need to pay our bills. We face costs of over £4,000 every month, and we get gratefully received donations of around 2,500, which is just not quite enough. We have raised over £10,000 this year so far, but we urgently need to raise at least £2,000 more to pay our bills now. You know that our programmes will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please do consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, or please just donate whatever you can afford. Once again, thank you to Maureen Watt, thank you, and to you at home for watching. Goodbye.